Restaurant workers have always been there for us.
They've worked long hours.
They've worked late nights.
They've worked holidays away from their families.
All to make sure that we're happy and fed.
Now it's time to repay the favor.
Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of restaurant workers have either lost their jobs or had their hours drastically cut.
And as dining rooms across the country shutter, takeout and delivery are the last remaining lifelines for many beloved restaurants.
So here's our challenge to you.
Yes, you.
The one in front of the screen.
With the hair and the shirt. Lucky bastard.
If you can afford it, order more food than you can eat in one meal from your favorite restaurant.
Put those leftovers in the fridge and make the most creative dish possible with them the next day.
Take a picture, post it to social media with hashtag #LeftoversChallenge, and urge your followers to do the same.
We've all gathered together to cook with leftovers from our favorite restaurants to give you a few ideas.
And click that donate button to give directly to the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation.
Your money will go towards direct worker relief, nonprofits supporting the restaurant industry, and zero-interest loans for restaurants to start back up again.
Why are we still here?
Let's cook something, yeah?
Alright, so for my entrant into the Leftovers Challenge, I submit to you fried chicken. But not just any fried chicken, really, really good fried chicken from the Beatrice Inn. Which, look, it even came with a note from head chef and owner Angie Marr. That's really nice, and it also comes with Beatrice Inn's justifiably famous spicy vinegary honey, a concoction I would eat by the spoonful if no one was looking. Oh, would you look at that? I went and did it anyway. We will definitely be putting that to good use later if I don't eat the whole thing first. For now, all three recipes today are going to require a separation of skin and meat from chicken bones. So I'm going to go ahead and rather graphically disassemble all this dark meat chicken, which is going to work better for our applications. Now, I'm positive that there's something you could do with these bones, make fried chicken bone stock, but I'm going to leave that one up to you guys to figure out. Now we're going to go ahead and chop up our dark meat chicken into much more manageable bite-sized pieces, which is going to help make them more bite-sized. The crispy skin, however, I'm going to mince into much finer pieces, almost like chicken skin breadcrumbs, because we're primarily using these to add flavor or to use as a garnish. Alright, now that we're all prepped, let's get into our first dish, fried chicken mac and cheese. We're going to start by grating about 4.5 ounces of white American cheese. Before you roll your eyes, this is just to use as the sauce base because it's full of stabilizers and emulsifiers. For the flavorful side of things, I'm going with pepper jack, but you could use things like sharp cheddar, Gouda, Munster. Now over on the stovetop, in a medium saucepan, we are combining 1.5 cups each water and milk. Bring that to a boil and dumping in 8 ounces of our pasta of choice in this ingenious method from America's Test Kitchen. Just stir it every so often for 6 to 8 minutes until it's about 1 minute shy of very al dente. At this point, we're going to reduce the heat to medium-low and add some flavoring components. 1 heaping teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a little shake of cayenne pepper. You are, after all, the Jordan Klepper of your cayenne pepper.
Stay out of my territory.
Whoa, sorry, Chef John. I'll stick with my good old-fashioned kosher salt and freshly ground pepper. And at this point, we're also going to add our chopped up dark meat chicken as well as the shredded American cheese. This way the chicken can heat through and the cheese can melt while we continue to cook everything together for an additional minute. Adjust the flame as necessary, and once the pasta is cooked, we're going to kill the flame entirely and add our more flavorful cheese. We're then just mixing that in to combine until it's evenly distributed, and then we're covering, preferably with a pot lid, but sometimes you gotta improvise, and letting this sit off heat for about 5 minutes, during which time we're going to toast up some of our chicken skin garnish in a little bit of oil in a non-stick pan. I'm also going to add a handful of panko breadcrumbs. These are going to soak up any of the extra chicken fat and bring even more crisp to the party. Once we've got our chicken skin topping out of the way, it's time to take a look at what we have created. The gooeyest, the stretchiest, the easiest mac and cheese as yet discovered in this timeline. I think it could be a little gooier, so I'm going to add a little bit more pepper jack cheese, stir it up until melted. There we go. Taste for seasoning, and Bob's your uncle. At this point, you could totally serve it up just like this. Throw some in a bowl, top it with, I don't know, a healthy grating of Parmesan and some of our chicken skin breadcrumb topping. And already you're looking at a pretty fabulous use for leftover fried chicken. But if you really want to blow your pants off, pile some of this mac and cheese in some broiler-safe servingware, top with some chicken skin and a healthy grating of even more cheese. Throw it under a preheated broiler for 4 to 5 minutes until browned and bubbly and crisp. And that's it, folks. I think we've gone full Guy Fieri. Frost my tips and upside down backwards my Oakleys because I've got a one-way ticket to Flavortown. Anyway, I think we knocked this one out of the park. On to recipe number 2, right after this commercial break. I'm sure you've heard of fried chicken and waffles, but have you heard of fried chicken in waffles? Into a small bowl, we are combining 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon and a half of kosher salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Tiny whisk to combine, get a bigger bowl, and dump 1 cup of buttermilk into it, followed by 3 tablespoons of melted butter and 1 large egg. Tiny whisk to combine, and whoops, I almost forgot we're going to add an optional tablespoon of coarsely ground cornmeal to our dry ingredients. Not only is this going to make our waffles a little more crispy, it's going to play real nice with those fried chicken flavors. We're gently folding together the wet and dry ingredients, and once mostly combined, we're going to add our chicken. I'm going to start by chopping the chicken into even smaller bite-sized pieces, maybe about, I don't know, 1.5 cups worth, as well as about 1/4 cup of our chicken skin, and maybe 2 ounces of grated Parmesan. Go ahead and mix that until everybody's gotten to know each other, and then let it sit at room temperature for about 10 minutes so the flour can completely hydrate. Then, as lovers so often do, we are thoroughly greasing both plates of our Belgian waffle maker, preheating until preheated, and then dumping 3/4 cup of waffle batter into the center, closing, flipping, and depending on your waffle iron's manufacturer, cooking for about 5 minutes, or until your waffle has reached a golden brown state of completion. As you can see, 3/4 cup of batter wasn't quite enough, but we're still going to treat this waffle with all the dignity and respect it deserves, keeping it warm on a wire rack in a low oven, while we make a few more waffles with a little more batter. There we go. That's the sauce. While the waffles are finishing cooking, we're going to make a quick maple whipped cream, combining 1 cup of heavy cream with 2 tablespoons of maple syrup and maybe a teaspoon of vanilla extract or vanilla paste. Tiny whisk to a state of homogeneity, taste for tastiness, and then it's time to whip. You could whip this with a hand or stand mixer, but I'm going to use a whipped cream siphon, give it a few shakes, and pile an unrestrained amount on top of your tall stack of waffles. Last but certainly not least, a generous drizzle of our spicy honey. Oh my God. This is definitely Instagram worthy. But how does it taste? Well, I'll tell you, it tastes just like fried chicken and waffles, with maple whipped cream and spicy honey, so, you know, awesome. But does it earn the Babish fork shake of excellence? Yes, it does. And while it deserves to be a member of the Clean Plate Club, I'm trying not to die, so I'll give the rest to Jess. For the last recipe, I decided to just kind of wing it, so to speak. You'll see. Into a food processor goes about 2 cups of chicken along with a 1/2 cup of chicken skin, processed until it's about as ground as you can get it, and then we're going to treat it sort of like a meatball, mixing together some binding and flavoring agents. 1/2 cup of buttermilk, 1 large egg, a little grated red onion, a little grated garlic, and maybe 1/3 cup of Frank's Red Hot, because as I'm sure it now makes sense, I'm winging it. Beat that together with a fork and dump it into our ground chicken mixture, along with about 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs to really help bind everything together. Don some gloves and get to mixing. We don't want it too wet, we don't want it too dry. Think again, meatball style, because that's pretty much what we're going to make. We're going to start forming these guys into patties, into which we are going to deposit a few crumbles of blue cheese, which subsequently we are going to encase in the meat, creating, as you may have now deduced, a blue cheese stuffed buffalo chicken meatball. But we aren't done yet. First, we have to rinse and repeat with our remaining meat and cheese, and then we must prepare a 3-stage breading station. Into bowl 1 goes some all-purpose flour, into bowl 2 goes 2 cracked and beaten eggs, and into bowl 3 goes the rest of my panko breadcrumbs. As you can see, we are employing the wet hand, dry hand technique, using my left hand to touch dry stuff and my right hand to touch wet stuff. This prevents breading from accumulating on one's fingers. Repeat with all the remaining balls, and then, last but not least, you guessed it, these guys are getting deep fried. Let's grab our spheres and head on over to the stovetop. Oh, need that. Where we've got 1 quart of vegetable oil heated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, into which we are going to gently dip our spheres, flipping frequently and frying for about 7 minutes until golden brown and crisp, draining on a wire rack and keeping everybody warm in a low oven while we construct a rudimentary buffalo sauce. Just equal parts butter and Frank's Red Hot. Western New York's greatest contribution to society since ever. Whisk to combine, and then I've decided to plate it up all fancy like. 3 pools of sauce onto which we're going to plop our spheres, and then what to garnish with. What are we missing here? Ooh, celery. Perhaps just the daintiest leaf of celery greens for garnish. And there you have it, some over-fancified cheese-stuffed buffalo chicken balls. But how do they taste? Well, as you can see, they're only receiving a tenuous fork shake of excellence, and that's because the chicken was predictably a little bit dry, but they're still really good. And now, last but not least, maybe the most practical advice I'm going to give you all day: how to just straight up reheat fried chicken. Get some vegetable oil up to 325 degrees Fahrenheit and drop it in. If your chicken is already pretty dark like this stuff is, only fry for 1 to 2 minutes until the skin gets a little crispy, then finish warming it up in a 350 degree oven and it'll be like brand new fried chicken. But who are we kidding? You're gonna make the waffles. Those things were awesome.